All right, let's talk about a true legend of the houseplant world, the African violet. You know the one. It's absolutely beautiful, it can flower literally all year round, but it has this reputation for, well, dying if you just look at it the wrong way. But what if I told you it's not actually delicate? It's just deeply misunderstood. Today, we're going to decode the African violet together.
Yeah, this is the question, right? It's the one that haunts pretty much anyone who's ever brought one of these beauties home. You think you're doing everything right, you give it water, you give it some light, and then one day it's just the sad, wilted mess. Well, it turns out the answer lies in one single central contradiction, and we are about to solve it.
And here it is. We're calling it the water paradox. This plant desperately needs its roots to be consistently moist to survive. But, and this is the killer, get one little drop of water on its fuzzy center, or let its roots sit in soggy soil for too long, and you basically kickstart a rapid journey into rot and disease. It sounds completely impossible, I know, but it's not. You just have to think of it like a puzzle, and we've got all the pieces right here.
So, to solve this paradox, we have to understand where this plant actually comes from. African violets didn't evolve in a cozy living room. They evolved in the cloud forests of Tanzania. Just picture that for a second. Constant high humidity. Everything is damp, but it's all happening under shady forest canopies, protected from any kind of direct heavy rain. Its entire biology is built for that world, not our world.
So why is top watering such a big no-no? Well, it all comes down to these fuzzy little hairs on the leaves. They're called trichomes. Back in their native cloud forest, they're amazing at pulling moisture right out of the humid air. But in our homes, when you water from above, they just trap those water droplets. And that creates this perfect, warm, wet little incubator for all the nasty fungal stuff that causes rot and leaf spot.
Okay, so how do we start building the solution? Before we even think about the right way to water, we have to engineer the right environment. I'm telling you, if we can just get the light and the temperature right, we've already solved half the puzzle.
African violets are total light hogs, but, and this is a huge but, it has to be the right kind of light. They need a good 10 to 12 hours of bright but strictly indirect light every single day if you want them to keep flowering. In fact, if your plant stops blooming, the very first thing you should check is its light situation. And remember, direct sun is public enemy number one.
And this is exactly why direct sun is so dangerous, especially if the leaves are even a tiny bit wet. A single drop of water sitting on a leaf in the sun becomes a tiny magnifying glass. No joke. It focuses the sun's rays and literally burns a hole right through the leaf tissue, leaving behind this irreversible, brown, crispy spot.
You know, it's not just about where the water goes, it's also about its temperature. Using cold water straight from the tap is one of the biggest and most common mistakes you can make. It causes something called water shock, which literally kills the leaf cells it touches, leaving behind these very distinct yellow bleached-out spots. So the rule is always, always use room temperature water.
Okay, so we've got the light handled, we've got the water temperature down. Now we need to talk about what is, without a doubt, the single most important decision you're going to make for your plant's survival: the soil. The right soil mix isn't just a place for the roots to hang out. It is your #1 defense against the plant's biggest killer, which is, of course, root rot.
Look, if you just grab a standard bag of all-purpose potting soil off the shelf, you're pretty much setting your violet up for failure. It's just too heavy. It compacts around those delicate little roots, it cuts off all the oxygen, and it holds on to way too much water. It basically creates a stagnant, oxygen-starved swamp, and that is the perfect breeding ground for the fungi that cause root rot.
So what's the solution? It's actually incredibly simple, and honestly, this formula is non-negotiable. You want a mix that is 50% specialized African violet soil. That's for the nutrients, and 50% perlite. That perlite is the absolute secret ingredient. It keeps the soil light and fluffy and full of little air pockets. It ensures that even when the soil is perfectly moist, the roots always have the oxygen they need to breathe and fight off disease.
All right, with the environment set up and our soil perfectly engineered for success, we can finally tackle the paradox itself. Let's dig into the master techniques that give this plant the perfect, consistent moisture it craves without ever getting the leaves or the crown wet. So, we've really got 3 main ways to water, and each one has a very specific job. Bottom watering, that's going to be our go-to, our everyday method. Wicking is a great option if you want a more hands-off approach. And top watering, we are going to save that for one very specific, very crucial strategic task that we'll get to in just a minute.
This right here is the gold standard.
You're basically letting the plant drink up exactly what it needs from the bottom through its drainage holes. But you have to look at step 3. This is the part that people always forget, and it is absolutely critical. If you let that pot sit around in the leftover water, you've just turned a perfectly safe technique into a one-way ticket to root rot. You have to drain that saucer every single time.
But this awesome method has a hidden danger. As the water gets pulled up through the soil and then evaporates from the surface, it leaves behind all the mineral and fertilizer salts. And over a few months, this stuff builds up and creates a toxic crust right at the surface, which can actually burn the plant's delicate crown.
And here it is. This is the secret maintenance trick that keeps bottom-watered plants healthy and thriving for years. Every 3 or 4 months, you need to do this flushing or leaching procedure. This is the one and only time you are ever going to intentionally water from the top. You just slowly pour pure water through the soil until it's running out the bottom, and this physically washes out all those nasty accumulated toxic salts.
You know, your plant is always talking to you. It's always sending you signals. The trick is just learning how to speak its language. So this next part is all about diagnosing problems before they become a full-blown crisis.
Okay, this is a classic trap that so many people fall into, and it is a cruel one. The symptoms for overwatering and underwatering look almost identical. In both cases, the leaves get all wilted and droopy. So if you see that and you just add more water without checking, you might be giving a drowning plant its final, fatal drink. The only way to know for sure is to stick your finger in the soil. That is the one and only deciding factor.
Leaf spots can feel like a total mystery, but they're actually very specific clues. See some yellow spots? You probably used cold water. Brown crispy spots? That's a classic sunburn. And if you're getting weird brown spots forming right in the center of the leaves, that could be a chemical reaction to stuff like chloramine in your tap water.
So you've done the finger test, and it's confirmed the soil is a soggy mess, and your plant is drowning. Here's what you do. Immediately get that pot and place it on a big, thick stack of paper towels. This will use capillary action to literally pull the excess water out of the soil, giving those roots a fighting chance to breathe again.
Now on the flip side, what if the soil is bone dry and the plant is completely wilted? Your first instinct is probably to just flood the pot with water, right? Don't do it. Those dried up roots can't absorb that much water all at once, and they might just start to rot. The correct way to do it is to rehydrate slowly. Just a tablespoon of water at a time every hour or so to let the roots gently plump back up and recover.
So after all of that, it really just comes down to these 3 golden rules. 1. Get your soil right with at least 50% perlite. 2. Never, ever shock it with cold water. And 3. Master that rhythm of bottom watering, but make sure you flush it from the top every few months. If you can just remember these 3 things, you are 90% of the way to success. Which brings us right back to our first question. Is this plant truly delicate? Not at all. It's just highly specialized. It has a very specific set of rules that come from its very unique history. And now that you understand those rules, you don't have to be afraid of it anymore. You just have to listen to what it's trying to tell you.